So first of all, I would like to ask Dr. Ivanov and then Dr. László Csicsmann, how can smaller countries and regional organizations contribute more meaningfully to the UN's global agenda, especially in conflict prevention and sustainable development, considering the dominance of major powers?
Well, coming from a small state, I can be very critical on this because my state actually suffers a lot from the hypocrisy of international community. I mean, Macedonia was forced to change its name twice. First as a former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, then North Macedonia, etc. Why? Because we were not allowed to fulfill the right of self-determination, something that is the very essence, right? That was mentioned in 1819 in the famous speech of Woodrow Wilson of the 40 points that laid the foundation of the League of Nations and later the United Nations. So it's hard to speak on that, but I can give some other examples. Although, what a perfect example can be offered from our side, or let's say as a small country, is the example of Mother Teresa. Because Mother Teresa was born in the city center of Skopje and she grew up surrounded by an Orthodox church, a mosque, a Catholic church, and a synagogue. So she learned to respect diversity since she was a little girl. And this is something that is embodied in the United Nations Alive Civilization. I will quote Mr. Martinez, who said this is a time when we should move from tolerance to respect, from coexistence to live together peacefully, from minority rights to citizenship rights, and from a dialogue to an alliance of civilizations. And this is something that we practice as a small country. Yeah, we were 5 centuries under the Ottoman Empire, but this is something that teaches us about the respect, because at that time we were allowed to practice religious belief that later we'd use it as a relic from the past in our daily life, that was later replicated in our political system, that we build it on integration without assimilation. But there's another case that I want to mention as a small state, which is Singapore. Singapore was built on 3 principles, according to Kishore, who was, let's say, informally advisor to Prime Minister Lee, who said the most important principle, and we know Singapore, right? Singapore was a non-developed region that emerged as a role model. Why? Because it practiced meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty. And I believe these 3 principles, as an example from a small state, can be embodied in the United Nations, right? That's why I mentioned in my speech, sometimes we should basically use this approach to be able to heard uncomfortable truths that are coming from that body, right? And not a political correctness only of the powerful ones. So I believe that if you want to focus on these 3 principles, pragmatism, honesty and meritocracy, is something that is a perfect example coming from a small state that can be used in the multilateralism and to bring this revival for the new upcoming world.
For the question, I would say it's not easy to answer this in a short time, but I think it's very important to mention that small states are not in a minority in the United Nations, so as it was told that they form the majority and playing a very important role. Like in the case of Hungary, for instance, we have a long history with the United Nations, and I would say Hungary is a small country, been playing important role in disarmament or peacekeeping forces, or nowadays in, of course, in a smaller amount than middle countries, but ODA, so development aid, and that type of things as well. And just let me highlight the small Pacific islands. They are fighting against the climate change issues. So I would say that as this changing, shifting international order, forcing small states even more to cooperate in a more pragmatic way, and I think it should be the guiding principles of the small states.
Thank you very much for your answers. And now I have a question to His Excellency André Erdős. In celebrating 80 years of the UN and 70 years of Hungary's membership, what lessons and inspirations can Hungary and similar countries draw from this experience to strengthen international cooperation amid rising nationalism?
if I understood what you were asking me, because it wasn't totally clear, not because of you, but because of the information revolution, the question of small and big countries, the question of the responsibility of each and every one of us who are sitting in the General Assembly is something that has to be taken seriously, but not cross the so-called red line when you imagine that since you are this and that, you can actually have a major impact on the auditorium of the General Assembly. The issue of for instance, of the Security Council issue here also exemplifies that becoming a member of the Security Council doesn't mean a privilege. It is a responsibility. This is the right approach to a future possible Security Council relationship, which means that most of the members of the United Nations do not really think that they are able to fulfill the responsibility of a Security Council permanent membership, because that's not an easy stuff. It's a complicated thing. But if you are in the Security Council and in the United Nations in general, in the United Nations, one of the attractive points for the world to become a member of the General Assembly of the United Nations is that you will have the right to stand up and to convey to the world what you think, what your country thinks about various things in the world. So that is as we call it in a legal way, legal equality of the members who are sitting in the General Assembly. There is no, in terms of rights of speech, voting, etc., there is no difference between Canada and Uruguay, for instance. But when it comes to closer issues, obviously, you will have to look at the issue and see what you can do. Now, most of the membership can take the floor and express their views on various issues, having in mind the situation of the given country. So there, obviously, the attitude of a country, let's say of Mauritius, as far as what happens to the small island countries, what happens to the climate change is one thing, but becoming Security Council permanent member is not really an issue. What it can do, I think Mauritius and others, is to express obviously the position, and I think this is their position, that yes, the future composition of the Security Council must reflect the present stage of the world. But you don't have to go further than that, because you have to measure objectively what you can do, what you can say in the Council and the United Nations, and what is the advantage of becoming a member state is that in each and every case, in each and every question, you can raise your hand and you can express what your country thinks, what your country believes has an impact on anything that the UN can do on the territory of your own country. And there are many differences between the various countries. You all have to take this into account, but the Security Council issue is a somewhat different thing. Here you have to realistically measure whether it is really an unserious issue to raise the issue of Zambia becoming a Security Council member, or Zambia can say what it thinks about the many challenges that we have in the world today.
Thank you very much. And since I am a former youth delegate, I just have to ask this next question from Mr. Goulandris. How can the UN better engage with not only civil society, but younger generations to ensure its continued relevance and legitimacy?
Thank you. It works? Yes. Sorry. Thank you for the question on civil society. So the UN is primarily a state-driven process, right? This is a fact. I don't think this is going to change. I must say that very, very objectively, not so much as a complaint, but that in the current, let's say, difficult moment that the UN is going through, you can see that the instincts of the UN, and maybe driven by the states as well, is not to have more civil society, but maybe to have the same and or less, right? So I mean, this is more, I would say it's not by design, it's more of an instinctive institutional reaction. I don't know if institutions have instincts, but sometimes I think it feels like it. Now, so let me answer to the question in terms of why civil society? And I will find the answer again in the instinctive reactions of the UN, which is that the UN doesn't have really a population except that of the member states. Now, in the different years that have passed, we can see that in international conferences and in international gatherings, the UN has been constantly seeking to add more space to civil society so that it has some immediate contact with the people. You can see that in the Summit of the Future, you can see that in the Millennium Summit, you can see. So there is something really to build on, because there is a thirst from the institution, since they don't have a direct population to ask opinions from and to get legitimacy, to seek legitimacy through the engagement of civil society. So I think we should develop that idea more, that more engagement of civil society actually gives more legitimacy to the UN processes, rather than saying the old, you have to engage civil society because without civil society there is no future, there's nothing. But the thing is, we've been saying that for a long time, and what happens now is a proof that this might not be the most striking argument, although true, but not the most striking. I think a very striking one would be if the UN feels sometimes that it lacks legitimacy or it lacks support from the people, civil society can give that 100%. This is a guarantee, because the existence of civil society in the different mechanisms and all that, be that non-decision making, because we know that the states are very cautious about including in the decision-making process entities that are not equal with them. But it can give that legitimacy. It can do it, it will do it if civil society was more engaged and in a more organized fashion. I'm talking top-bottom, because the bottom-up is already organized enough. I mean, civil society is there. But if we had more engagement, it would not be a solution to all the problems, but it would definitely solve a part of the legitimacy question. So I think there is something there for the UN to think about, and for member states on a very opportunistic, if necessary, approach, or it can be a moral approach, it can be an opportunity. It doesn't matter the reason. I think that civil society being more engaged will give more legitimacy to the processes. And the youth. And with the youth, actually, it's the exact same thing. I just remembered the youth delegate comment, I'm sorry. With the youth, it's the exact same thing, with one small difference. Sometimes I don't know, I may be expressing my personal opinion here, but I think we're using the word youth as a word. It's a catch-all phrase. I mean, we don't pay attention to which youth we're engaging sometimes. It's just, okay, let's put someone who's young in the panel, and the person says things, but it's like, it's unprepared, and I think it defeats the purpose. So if we want to engage more youth, and we have to, again, the same thing, prove that was useful for the panel, useful for the process. And maybe that's why some diplomats sometimes that I talk to, they don't see the point. Of course they don't see the point. If they just participated to a panel where there were professionals and a completely disorganized speech from a youth member that you invited last minute, that's not going in the right direction, right? So it's an extreme example, but I think if we want to engage youth, we have to do it in as professional manner as it would be with any other group of people.
Thank you very much for saying that. So I will just give back the floor for a sentence to Mr. Ivanov.
Just one sentence. His Excellency basically reminded me of when we were speaking about small states and influence in the United Nations. Basically, it's not about the size, but it's about the mentor. You know, as a small state, who is your mentor, and whether that mentor is P5 or it's outside of the P5. And we can see this, you know, we can see that in the past, especially, you know, the Soviet Union and then later Russia. Soviet Union was very active with the veto during the Cold War period. Later Russian issues that are critical over some states that they're supporting. United States as a second country with approximately 90 vetoes on issues on countries that are supporting and that are not very critical on. So basically what I see about the small states, yeah, the General Assembly is something else, but the Security Council is something else. So I believe what is important is who is your mentor and whether you have the support and whether that member is P5.
Thank you very much for our esteemed panel, and we would like to hear now the comments of Ms. Ildikó Horváth, Director of the Translation Center for the Bodies of the European Union, Luxembourg. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the floor. So I would like to say, united in diversity. I don't know whether you recognize it, but this is the slogan, the motto of the European Union. And this would be my takeaway. My takeaway from this meeting is that the UN as well needs to stay united in diversity. And this is probably the biggest challenge today. We have heard it throughout the day, I think. This is the biggest challenge today. Because this is the only way, I think, to continue to solve the problems, as we heard, peacefully and through dialogue. Another thing that we have heard several times today is that for dialogue, dialogue is needed for cooperation on a global level, but for dialogue we need to listen first. And this is what we have to relearn, maybe. Because it is true, we are living in a strange world today. We hear a cacophony en français, of opinions, of slogans, of news, of information. And we really need, it's a jungle of information, I would like to say. And it's very difficult to listen, really, and to go beyond information. Information is data. Beyond information, so that data becomes information, you need to process it, you need to put it into context. I think we need to relax a little bit as well, relax a little bit, take our distances from all of this. And what we also need is respect. We also heard it today. If we want to think about the possible future scenarios for the UN, because I hear and I understand and I think that there is no question about the continued existence of the UN, because it needs to stay the platform of global dialogue for the future, I think. But again, we need to remain united in diversity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much to our esteemed panel for contributing to our meaningful discussion on challenges ahead, and thank you very much for your attention.
Merci beaucoup.
Mr. President, Your Excellencies, dear friends, here we are. We have to leave the room by 3 p.m. So thank you so much for all of you, for your contribution, for accepting our invitation. Here I would like to thank again the Vice President of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, Professor Lamvanda, and also for her work, encouragement and support in the Presidium of the United Nations Association. I would like to thank all the members of the Presidium who are here today. We cooked it together, so I'm very happy that you all managed to come and gave so important and valuable added thoughts for, you know, each concepts, what will happen to the UN, how Quo Vadis, where are we going, what's happening. I think we are going away from here with a lot of lessons. I'm also very happy that the students of the Hungarian Academy of Diplomacy are here in the Ludovico College, and that was a whole day lesson day. So I think you can't learn more about the UN, really, and quite a lot also of soft power diplomacy. So thank you for all our guests who came from abroad attending this conference. Thank you for all the speakers and panelists, the professors and experts, writers and politicians. I think we heard a lot of thought-provoking approaches as well, which I think is very good. So now we can go home, we can do our best, and don't forget Jane Goodall, who sadly died not a long time ago. I knew her very well, and we had long conversations, not only about the chimpanzees, but really about the humanity, and mainly what she was saying is that everyone, every single person on the planet is responsible for her or his actions, and everyone can make a difference. And I would like to leave this room with that, because UN, after all, is making a difference, making a better world, and leaving a better world for the future. Whether we can manage or not, I don't know, but at least we have to try. So thank you very much for everybody for the contribution, and thank you for the Academy of Cultural Diplomacy. Mark, thank you again for your collaboration. We did it. Thank you so much. So let's continue somewhere else in the world. This is what we've been doing, and I'm very happy because I have been running the Arts and Cultural Diplomacy program of the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy. So that was a good example for that as well. So thank you very much for everybody.